Welcome to Home's Room. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin. Home's Room is brought to you by Anchor. Anchor by Spotify is a total package podcast tool from getting started to distribution, in-app editing, and much more. They even help you monetize your podcast. All of that for free. With a web and mobile-based app, recording anywhere on anything is a breeze. Get your voice heard with Anchor by Spotify.
From wanting to save lives to actually building worlds, doing it from her own recipe, a cosplay queen and all-around badass with the right amount of sparkle, Danielle M. Orsino. Welcome to Home's Room.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. Is there anything you could tell us about yourself that kicked this off? What do you do? What maybe did you do?
Now I'm an author. I also work a little bit for Horsemen Publications, which is my publisher. But before all that, I was first a competitive martial artist, and then I transferred into nursing, and that led me to my authorship. So it's been a long journey, and probably some would say an unorthodox journey.
Yeah, unorthodox is definitely how that goes. From martial artist to, cosplay, it seems like a normal transition, but martial artist to author, that one seems a little, the roots got a little mixy there, but I think that's awesome. Anybody can write, and that's kind of what the world is about, is finding new tasks, new skills, new traits, all that kind of stuff. So how many books do you have? You said you're an author and you're published. How many books do you have?
Currently, I have 5 novels, 1 novella, and then I've just turned in book 6 of the series, probably about, give or take, a month ago, and I'm waiting for that to come back from my publishing house under editing. So hopefully that will be out. June 16th will be the last book in volume 1 of the Birth of Fae series, and that's titled Forgive Us, and then we go on to volume 2. So it's been
Awesome.
It's been a lot. It's cool.
So Birth of the Fae is the series.
Mm-hmm.
And can you tell us what and who are Fae, and how are they different in your world from normal Fae? Because I think that's a thing. I think they're a little bit different, right?
Yes, Fae actually is an acronym. It's the Fellowship Aegis of Earth. So the Defenders of Earth is my Fae. They're a little different in the sense that they were angels who were locked out of heaven. They just can't go home. So they're stuck here on Earth after the war between the Creator and Lucifer. And there's 2 factions of them. There is the Virtue Angels, which are kind of nature's angels. They're sent here to prep the Earth for the Creator's next experiment, which is humans. And then there's the Power Brigade Angels, which are the Archangel's foot soldiers. They're the ones actually doing the fighting against Lucifer. And then one day, both find out they just can't go back home. They can't go home to the Shining Kingdom. They don't know why. They're just locked out. So they have to figure out how to survive here on Earth, and their wings slowly and painfully decay. Both of the factions don't know that the other one is stuck here. The Power Angels kind of figure out the Virtue Angels are here, but they stay hidden for a little while. And then they take the acronym Fae, because they kind of figure out, all right, we're here. So they become what we know as humans as our polytheistic pantheon of gods and goddesses. Throughout history, they become the Egyptian gods and goddesses, the Romans, the Greeks, pagans, whatever. And they figure out when they're worshipped, they have power. It enhances their power. So that's kind of where the journey goes to, is them just trying to find new identities and then live amongst the humans. And that's where the series takes us.
I like that. That's one of those, I knew a little bit about that going in, but I am one of those people that, when you look at the similarities between a lot of the a lot of the mythological beings, gods, whatever whatever you want to call them, there's so many similarities across the board with them that I like that. I like the way you lended that kind of a theory to this. That's pretty awesome. I like that.
Thank you.
You are also a member of the Dyslexic Writers Club. How has that journey been for you?
Oh, wow. I've learned a lot about that. What I've learned is one, I need a lot of editors because I'm not going to catch everything. The word
Yeah.
body and abdomen is probably my kryptonite, but I handwrite everything first. And so some of
Oh
my
wow.
angel names and Fae names have changed. For example, King Jarvok was originally Farjuk in when I hand wrote him, and then when I went to type him, Jarvok came out, and kind of in my head, he was like, "Yeah, I like that name better. Go with that." So the dyslexic changes have, some worked out really good, some have not. It's funny. One of my author friends, C.R. Rice, she laughs because sometimes when she reads my work, she's like, "Yeah, I know it's you because whenever you write into or not, she's like those two words interchange." And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "That's when I know it's you. It's kind of like become your signature." So dyslexia, it's a double-edged sword. It
Yeah.
slows me down, but in one sense, I really have to sit and think about it. But handwriting everything first, and then going to type helps me in the editing process. So I think I don't really see it anymore as a weakness. I've just kind
Yeah.
of embraced it
Absolutely.
and just been like,
Yeah.
okay, my brain works a little differently, whatever.
That's exactly what we're about here at Holmes Room. We like to say you're not there's no failure, not saying that you can't fail, but you just learn
Mm-hmm.
and know what you need to do differently, know what you need to do better. And that very much sounds like your approach to being a writer with dyslexia. I am also a member of the Dyslexic Authors Club.
High five.
Yeah, right there you go. So I definitely know those struggles, and I like that you write out by hand first and then go back in and type it. My handwriting is so small that I would lose words and probably not catch them all. So I don't know that I could pull that off. So that's a talent to me that I would not be able to possess. So that's already one check mark in that box of like impressing me. So that's awesome. When it comes to writing, one thing that like I didn't plan on having so many writers on here before uh I started interviewing people, and it just so happened that like the people that were responsive, number one, because that's always part of it, but the
Yeah.
people that I've been like, man, I like what you do, I like your the way that everything is presented, have ended up being a lot of writers, and your stories are similar to mine in the way that we've built our own worlds. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to do a little bit of research, listen to your interviews, listen to things that you said, stalk your Instagram a little bit to see what you got going on,
Mm-hmm.
just to get a better idea of who I'm talking to. And you almost have a method acting approach to the way that you write, and that's so interesting to me. And I think that saying, in any uncertain terms, like method acting is, where you put yourself in the role, you are living as that thing. And for the people that are going to be able to see this, you are in costume right now, and I think that that's awesome. And to be able to write and see those characters in your head is pretty awesome. So I just wanted to say that that's super interesting to me. Can you tell me a little bit about like how that process works for you?
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. I I kind of thought everybody did this. It's very weird because when I talk to other creatives, all of them think that everybody writes the way they do, and I was one of
Mm-hmm.
them. I thought, everybody acts it out in their head, or when when I write, I first kind of hear the story in my head and play it out in a sense. I thought
Yeah.
everybody did that. I'm like, oh, don't you all just walk around with like the story playing in your head and like hear everybody arguing in the voices, and people are looking at me like, no, it's not that. I write an outline, I do this, and I'm like, really, you just don't walk around with a constant monologue like JD from Scrubs, because that's kind of my life. Like, I thought
Yeah.
we all did that with the soundtrack and this, and they were like, what the heck are you talking about? I'm like, oh, okay, that's just me. Got it. I tend to just hear the story first in my head, and I walk around with that going on. When I decided to start dressing up as my characters, I cosplayed. I've cosplayed. I've been to Comic Con for years. I've been Wonder Woman. I've been Harley Quinn, Catwoman, Poison Ivy. I've done all that. When it came time to write, and as I was writing, when I was doing the characters, I would think about what they're wearing because obviously you want to describe it, but also how do they move? What do they do? And it came down to what they wear because it could be cumbersome and how
Yeah.
realistic are the fight scenes, things like that. So I dressed up and that helped me embody them and all that stuff. But again, I thought everybody did that. Like, wouldn't, if you're doing a fight scene, don't you want to know, Edna Mole, no capes. Does that work? The Incredibles, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It just seemed natural to me. It didn't seem that far gone in the realm. And probably because I'm writing fantasy, you just kind of go there. And as a cosplayer, why wouldn't you? And I'm a comic book geek. Who doesn't want to put on body armor, for God's sake? So, that's where you go.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was that weird. I didn't think it was, like I said, out of the realm of possibilities. And once I did it, it helped me. And I had done it first. I did a photo shoot with 5 characters, and I did it in one day, which I will never do again. But we shot for like 14 hours, and I got to see, oh yeah, this is how Lady Navi would look, and okay, she's a warden of the peacocks, and this is how I want her to have this ability and whatever. And it just kind of helped me. But once again, I thought everybody did this. I thought everybody would want their characters drawn out so they could see them and take on characteristics. Later, I found out, no, not everybody does that. So, it just
I think that's awesome, though.
kind of happens. As for dressing up, when I do interviews and things, part of it was, or still is, because as an author, you hide behind your characters.
Yeah.
We write, we create our world, and then we're like, we're done. But then you have to go out and speak about it. So a little of it was armor, a little bit of it was to kind of help. But then I felt like, well, if I'm going to talk the talk, I better walk the walk. If I'm going to say this is a world for everybody to get lost in, I better put the sparkles on, put the wing on, put the crown on, and tell them, come visit my world. I think
Absolutely.
too many authors, and this is fiction nowadays, are like, they almost act like for a reader to come to them, it's like, oh, I'm letting you in my world. No.
Ew.
It's an honor if you spend your hard-earned money on a Fae book for me. I'm like,
yes.
Oh, thank God you want to read my book. Holy cow. Okay, let me take you by the hand and let me show you. I am going to be your tour guide to everything Fae. What do you want to know? Let's go. I'm taking you into the veil. So I feel like dressing up is me saying, I believe in this product so much. I'm going to put sparkles on my face. I am going to wear a crown. I'm going to get myself in a corset, and I am Queen Aurora, and let's go, people. I believe so much in this book, and I am so thrilled that you even want to spend 5 minutes in it, and you want to spend your hard-earned money, because let's face it, cash is hard to come by. If you want to spend $20 or you want to buy it on audio, I am going to make sure you have the best possible time. If that means dressing up, damn, I'm going to dress up and let's go. And that's
I love that.
how I feel about it. So yeah, I'm going to dress up and, I'm going to show you a Fae good time. And that's it.
Yeah, I think that is a beautiful creative process, because not only does it give you a better sense of the world and going into the detail of like, would they wear a cape? Would they do this? Could they move? Gives you a different perspective, and putting yourself in that role is something very interesting. I'm currently working on a book where the main character is me. I don't usually write myself. Usually I write other people. I don't like to write myself. And I very much find myself, the last books I wrote, I had art kind of sprinkled throughout, not a graphic novel or anything, but art sprinkled throughout. And I won't have to rely on an artist this time, because all of the art in this book is going to be real pictures taken. I'm the main character, so the pictures will be of me in character doing all of these things. And I think that adds a layer of, not only context, but also texture.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that that's what you're doing and people get to see you out doing this thing. Like, I would love to go to an event, a Comic-Con, like I'm sure you do, where like you are this character, and not only do people come up and talk to you, oh, who, maybe who are you supposed to be, because they don't know, but then the people that do know are like, oh, and they recognize you from the cover of your books, or they recognize you from, what they've read. And I think that that's awesome. A segue from that, I love that you like lean into your knowledge and skill from your martial arts background to form your fight scenes, what does and doesn't work. I think that lowers the risk of blunders in writing and things that just like somebody's going to come across. Like, I'm not an expert on anything at all by like any means, but one of the things I really don't like is when it comes to weapons and weapons training. I grew up with like a military family and all that, so like I grew up around guns, I grew up around weapons. It's just one of those things that like when you get a detail wrong, it instantly pulls me out, because all you had to do was ask one person that knows a little bit and you would have fixed that. So I was reading a book the other day, and it said something about a double action gun needing to be cocked before it was fired, and that's literally the opposite.
Even I know that one.
A double action means that it is actioned whether you have it cocked or not. There go double. A single action you would have to cock to get it to be ready to fire. And it just like disappointed me, because it's like, that's a simple question that you could have Googled. And what is a single action? What is a double action? And it would have fixed that. And you're already taking steps to like have that acted out. So this is going to work. That this thing, like this cape, nope, I wouldn't wear this cape, because if I jump off this horse, or if I run into this battle, whatever it is, if I jump off this dragon, I don't got to worry about it getting snagged on something. So why would that character in any way wear that? And I think that that's another really good, author tool that you use. And that's, again, why, learning about you, wanting you onto the show, your process is so much different than anything I've heard, but still similar to aspects of some of my work, I'm sure a lot of authors out there that don't feel like, oh man, I'm weird because nobody else does that. So I think it's amazing that you're doing that. And I think that, it's inspiring to people to be like, no, go act out your stuff, go read and rewrite. And, oh, this hair doesn't fall the right way because a crown wouldn't let it, like whatever that thing is I think that's awesome. So keep that up.
Thank you. Yeah. I've rewritten so many fight scenes, and I don't do big sweeping battles. You will not see 1,000 horses charging across the field in my books, because I don't know what that's like. So I try not to write about that, because I just don't know. My fight scenes are more condensed. Usually it's not more than a couple people, because then I can see. I look, I love my superhero movies. I'm the first one, and I don't think we're at Marvel fatigue yet. DC's another thing, but
yeah.
Once you got rid of Cavill, I was kind of out. But
yeah,
I don't want it to be. I love The Dark Knight. I love Christopher Nolan. But part of what bothered me about that movie was all you saw was a black cape twirling, a close up of a fist, and you were still sitting there going, "What's happening? What's going on?" I want to see the fight scenes. I want my readers to sit there in the middle of it and go, "I can picture everything that's happening here." Okay, there's an elbow, a crossing elbow. It's coming to this guy's forehead. It's splitting it open on a diagonal. Okay, I can see everything. I get where it's coming from, and I've acted them out. I just had a fight scene in book. It's actually in book 6, where I kept rewriting the sword, because I'm like, all right, is it a cross? Is it this? Okay, if they're looking from behind, well, then I guess technically it's cutting left to right. And I was going back and forth on this, because I'm like, well, if the reader's looking at it from behind the person, then yes, they're cutting right to left. But from the sword holders, it's left to right. And this was going back and forth. I rewrote this line probably 50 times, because I was trying to figure out where would the reader be looking. Because I write from that omniscient point of view, and I'm like, do I want them from behind the sword hook? And this was going back and forth, and it's always something, because I want the reader to feel like they are right there in that fight scene. And they're like, I can see all of this that's going on, and they're not going, well, there's a fist going into a stomach, but I don't know how they punch. Was it an uppercut? Was it a straight? No. I want them to leave going, I got it. Okay, I got what she's doing. I find it interesting. I was told many times to change my name, to change it to my initials. Don't let anybody know you're a female writing fantasy, because the blowback I got was, she's very angry when they would read my fight scenes versus, they're good fight scenes, to where if it was a male, it was like, oh, those are great fight scenes. But as a female, I'm angry. And I find that always an interesting dichotomy.
Yeah, that's actually one of my next questions. I asked you before we got on here what your name was actually, what you wanted to be called. And I am going to make a better effort on any female guest or female identifying guest I get to ask them what they want to be called, because I just interviewed somebody and their published work is under their maiden name, but they got married. So there's like a discrepancy between their Instagram and like social media stuff versus their writing name. And that was something that I understand. I know that is a thing,
Mm-hmm.
but I never realized how much of a challenge that could be. And I wouldn't have given context to say, oh, wait, I guess you do have technically two different names per this thing. And I introduced her same way I introduced you at the beginning of this episode. But before I got to her last name, I said, you tell everybody what you want to be called and what you choose to be, because I'm giving you space to have a voice right now, no matter the circumstance. And, I'm glad that you, like I said, you went there with that, name, stupidity. So I was just curious, was there anything else that, that happened besides, whether they would take the fight scenes? Was there more struggle with being a fantasy writer and a female fantasy writer at that, where you had to face some of that adversity?
I had a lot of Horsemen Publications did not want me to change my name, so they were happy for me to stay as Danielle M. Orsino.
Thank you.
A lot of people were like, "Can you make it DM Orsino?" They were like, "Or could you take your married name?" And I'm like, "My maiden name, all my martial arts was under Orsino, so I was like, I'm not switching my name. It will be Danielle M. Orsino because I'm a martial artist. I write good fight scenes. I'm sticking with that." The funny thing was they were like, okay, well, if you're going to stay Danielle, can we get some romance? And I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Why am I putting romance? I was like, I'm fantasy. And they were like, but can we make it a little more romanticy? They were like, because it's the Fae. And I was like,
yeah.
Why am I putting romance? No, I was like, my girl, Aurora is busy becoming queen. She doesn't have time to start swiping right or left. Like, she's got stuff to do. She don't have time. I said, and King Jarbok, he's getting ready to have a war. Once again, he doesn't have time to go pillaging and raping. I don't want him doing that. So I turned around and I made King Jarbok a virgin, and they were like, "You're gonna make a dark Fae King male a virgin." I was like, "Yep, I just decided that."
I love it.
And I did it specifically because the other publishers were pushing me to play into the stereotype of the dark Fae King being a player, and I was like, "Nope, he's now a virgin." That's what I've decided. I was like, yeah. I was like, he doesn't even know what sex is. I was like, in fact, it's not sex, it's aura blending. We're going to go in a totally different direction. The Fae do it simply because they want the energy. They don't fall in love with the package. They fall in love with energy. So guess what? He's never aura blended. Nope. Yep, he can be the greatest warrior on the planet. He has never aura blended a day in his life. And in fact, his lieutenant, who is a player, has got to explain it to him. So we're going to have the most horrible father-son discussion, the most awkward discussion you could ever have.
I love it.
I'm going to now put in this book, and I'm not going to use one sexual term. And they were like, how are you going to do that? I'm like, don't worry, I'm going to. Now, it took me a long time to figure it out. Don't get me wrong. This was all big talk, and I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to figure it out. And I did it using all battle terms, but I went against the grain, and I made both king and queen virgins. They had no idea what they were doing.
I love it.
Because I was like, I'm not going to play into this Fae stereotype that every Fae book is some romantic smut thing and disguise it as fantasy, because I don't like when young adult, and I'm not young adult, I could be, but because I have religious aspects, they won't let me. When these young adult books that are Fae throw a lot of smut and then go, but I'm young adult. No, you're not. You're smut. Like, let's get it straight. But just because it's Fae, it has to be romance. No, I'm a fantasy book. I have romance toward the end of this volume. There is a little bit, but that's not my central story or plot. and because I'm a woman, I have to have it. Heck no. I'm political intrigue. I'm other things. It's alternative history. There's other things going on. Doesn't just because I'm a woman doesn't mean I have to write romance. Like this isn't Romeo and Juliet. Let's get over it.
I love that. I don't know if you remember when I introduced you and I said you were doing things by your own recipe, and that right there is just a little sprinkle right there of something different. And that's again, just doing the research on what you've done. I was like, yeah, this is somebody that lives by their rules and isn't going to be told, well, you have to do this or well, you have to do that, and it's just going to knuckle under. It's like, this is my work and this is what I want. I self-published because I fall under horror, but I'm not a horror writer. Like, can I write horror? I am working on a horror script. Yes, but that's not what this is. This book is these books are at their center a family story that just happens to be during a zombie apocalypse. There's so much more to it than that.
Yep.
And when people read it, I think it was one of my cousins read it. She was like, I don't like zombies. I don't like horror. I don't like gore. I don't like anything. And I was like, this is a zombie apocalypse written for you then.
Right.
It's not designed to be all of those tropes that everybody tries to make. It's more centered around the people accomplishing just like an ordinary task in itself that would be devastating to do, while there just happens to be living dead things trying to eat you. Like there's a whole another aspect of it. So I think that finding another writer that also is like, I'm going to take this world, I'm going to shift it 30 degrees to the left, and then I'm going to sprinkle in a bunch of things that like I want, not what the world says it's supposed to be, not what, what this says. Like one of my favorite things about my books is I built a world around a virus that is derived from an existing sickness that affects a lot of people, that the symptoms mimic what a zombie would do, just in an accelerated form. And that gives credence to what a zombie is, instead of just saying, oh, zombie virus got out and now everybody is zombie. That's I don't want that. I don't need that. So I think it's awesome that you also said, I'm going to make this whole thing, the smut that you want, I'm going to make it so it can't even exist in my world, just simply because I don't want to. That's not the focus of this book. So
yeah,
I love it already. I love that is the kind of person you are, but also that's the integrity you have behind your work. And that's again, why I have you here in Holmes' room.
Thank you.
What's your favorite thing about writing? Like since you just told us a little bit about how you go about writing, what's your favorite thing about it?
I was very surprised. It's funny because I was watching something, and I think the question was I was watching the new show Kaleidoscope, and somebody had said on it, well, if we get this $1 billion, I'm going to go here and I'm going to do this, and I never have to work again. And it struck me that even if I had all this money and I never had to work again, I'd actually miss writing. That was the first thing, and that's when I knew I was doing something that I really loved. And I think what I love most about writing is just creating these worlds, creating these characters. It's just something that kind of sings to my soul. I was just talking to CR again today, and I said, I have this new idea for a series. And she was like, are we getting away from the Fae? I'm like, no, the Fae will always be there. But we were joking about it because our publisher has a new writing contest. And we were discussing it, and I said, the contest is the other horsemen. Like, okay, you got the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, but what about the others? And it's this new and I said, no, I'm like, I think I'm going to write about the 4 horsemen, but like, what if Pestilence had a sister named, who wants to be the 4 horsemen named Joy? And I was just like, I said, what if like, Pestilence's real name was Alyssa? And she was like some like, little like this teenager, this sullen teacher. And she's like, my name is really Alyssa, but I go by Pestilence. And like her father was Archangel Michael. And he was like, my daughter's a legacy. But she had a younger sister going like into her freshman year of high school. And she wants to be Joy. Like she doesn't understand the whole 4 horsemen thing. So her name is Joy. And she wants to like teach the world to dance before the apocalypse comes because she's obsessed with the song from Prince 1999. And she was just like, this is what you've been thinking about? I'm like, yeah, was like, yeah, that's what I've been thinking about. I'm like, she doesn't want to ride a horse. Instead, she wants a corgi. That's her life.
I
Like,
love
this
that.
is what she's thinking. She wants to wear pink overalls and she wants to go to school. And Alyssa is trying to tell her, like, you can't go to school like this. And they go to the Horseman Academy, because her father's like, you're gonna be the next horseman. This is legacy. And she was like, seriously, this is what you've been doing all morning. She's like, you have another novella that you've got to get out. And I'm like, I know. I was like, and I realized, like, that's what I love. I love
Yeah,
creating new characters and new things that people can just get lost in, or for 2 seconds, like, just forget about their life, because we turn on the news and it's just depressing. It's just fear mongering. And I'm not saying conspiracy theories, like, it doesn't
absolutely.
matter what your beliefs are, like, what side of the aisle, none of that matters. I'm just saying, you turn on the news and it's just always something. It's like,
Hmm.
floods over here, this is going on over there. I'm like, isn't it nice to pick up a
That's why I
book
started this.
and
Yeah,
just,
that's why I started this.
like, get lost? So I'm like, I just love writing and thinking my book or my story, somebody can come home after a day and be like, I'm just going to go read a good book. I think that's the best
Yeah,
part of writing.
that is. I like that. That's a good answer for that. You talked a little bit about it in that answer, which you're like segueing into my questions really well, and I think that either means that like you're a perfect conversationalist, or I wrote questions that like
We're vibing.
somehow flow.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yeah, exactly. Somehow flow really well, and I love that. So I was going to ask you about character building. Can you tell me a little bit about how you build your characters? I know, like, once a character is created, like once I create it, the person is in my mind, and I can hear them, I can see them. They speak to me. If I'm sleeping, they might be like, "Hey, you know what I want to do?" And like that's an idea that I wake up and I have to make a note of, or whatever it is. They can even give me some dirty looks, if I don't do right by them, if I do something, a little crazy. Like, I killed off a character in my second book, and it was not received well, but in the way that it was meant to be not received well. It was a pivotal moment that had to happen. And I remember struggling with it for days. Like you said, going back and, do I write this? Do I not write this? And I can't talk to anybody about it because it's a thing. So I just had to sit with it. And I remember sitting in front of a TV. I don't remember what was on. And I just heard his voice or I shouldn't say heard his voice, but I saw him in front of me,
Mm-hmm.
and he pointed at the computer that was sitting on my lap, and he nodded his head, and I was like,
Yep.
okay, I guess this is what I'm
I know
doing.
the
So,
feeling.
can you tell me about how you build characters, and what that process is like for you?
Uh, Most of my characters, yeah, they live in my head. They're just there. The voices are there. They live rent free. They talk to me. Sometimes they just show up. I never sat down and had a character building formula. Like, I know some people do. They like, right,
Mm-hmm.
they fill out like a
I've
psychological
tried that. It
profile.
doesn't work for me.
I don't know how they do that. I don't do
Yeah, it
that.
doesn't work for me either.
That's never worked. That's never happened. I don't know. Uh, for me, they just exist. I don't know if that makes sense, but they're
Mm-hmm.
just there. They talk to me. Like I said, when Jarvok's name became Jarvok, he was like, "Yeah, I like that better. Go with that." He's like, "Work with that, honey."
Yeah,
They all have theme songs that they go with.
I like that.
Uh, you know, Indiga, who I never thought I'd write little kids in the Fae world. That was never a plan. Never.
Mm-hmm.
When Indiga, who's about 6 years old, came in, she was not planned. Literally, I was sound asleep, and all of a sudden, this little curly-haired, like Eloise at the Plaza Fae, like, was skipping rope across my brains, and Cherry Bomb came blasting through my head, and she was skipping rope, going, "Get up! It's time to write my story." And I sat up at 3 a.m. and she was just like, "So this is what I'm like." And she was a sarcastic little thing, petulant. And she's like, "So get up and let's go." And I was like,
Oh,
damn. And I got up and I wound up writing her into the story. And she became one of my favorites. And she's gone straight through. She was not planned. She just popped into my head and was like, "Up, let's go. Come on, hit that computer." And I was writing for
yeah,
like hours about her. And then from her came
that's wild.
Issa, came Dora, and like all these characters came off of her. And I was like, Okay, Indiga's here. She hasn't left, like
Yeah.
there she is. Some of the other characters, a lot of the original ones were based off people I knew. That's how it is.
Yeah.
Serena the mermaid is my best friend from high school, Jen. Serena and Jen are the same. I mean, she's a ride or die girl. Our talks on the beach that Aurora and Serena have are Jen and I sitting at Fawnstock when we thought we knew everything, as teenagers, and we're like, we're so deep.
Yeah.
That's them. The chapter in Locked Out of Heaven, the first book, Girl Talk, is inspired by her and I sitting on the beach and her being like, I'm going to give it to you straight. You might not want to hear it. I love you, but here. That's Jen. I could be driving something off the cliff with my hair on fire and she'd be like, you're doing so good. This is so great. We're totally going to talk afterwards. But for right now, go team. And then when I'm done, she'll be like, okay, so we got to talk about what just happened here.
Shout out Jane.
Yeah.
Shout out Jane. We like you.
And like her and I could be out there. I could be facing down people. And I could be like, that sky is purple. And she'll be like, it's totally purple. We'll get behind closed doors. And she'll be like, what do you think that sky's purple? But it's like behind closed doors. In front of everybody, she'll be like, sky is purple. And she'll be nudging me like, I don't know what you're on right now, but that sky is purple. Behind closed doors, yeah, she'll be like, the sky is blue. What the hell are you doing? But in front of everybody, she'll have my back 110%. Hoggle, the metal gnome, is my dad. My dad is a motorcycle racer. He builds, he's built cars my whole life. He'll turn anything into something pretty. Like the fuse box. He hated
Cool.
it.
Yeah.
So finally he was like, I'm going to airbrush it. He airbrushed it whole twilight. Like this whole midnight sky. And he was like, there, isn't it so much prettier? Okay. So that's who he is. He turns the ordinary into something extraordinary. Everybody is somebody. A Fae is somebody I know. The dragons are my dogs. Los the chameleon dragon, my Yorkie. Lady Penelope, you'll meet her later on. She's the leader of the Aubain faction. That's my little Chewini. They're all somebody.
That sounds like the age-old, write what you know and doing it in a way that is not only paying like homage to those people, but also informing off of a real person who this character is in a way that's interesting. Like I know I definitely didn't do that. So when I create characters, they kind of tell me who they are. I wouldn't be able to look at a person and be like, hey, you're like such and such. I like my mind doesn't work that way. So I think that's like amazing that your mind works where you can relate this character into this person. And now you have a template to go off of like, okay, you're a ride or die person. So I know where in the world you fall. I know how you would be. And you don't have the unfortunate, man, what does this person look like? What accent might they have? What, like, you might do all of those things, but you still have that like base of like, this is my person. I know
I have the
this
motivation.
person is that thing.
Like I have the basic motivation.
Exactly.
The bishops, which a lot of people don't know, the bishops got their name because I had a martial art. The head of my martial art organization hated my guts, and his name was Mr. Bishop, and he was always my nemesis. So the bishops, a lot of people think that's like there's some religious meaning to the bishops. No, Mr. Bishop just hated me. So when I needed a bunch of villains, I was like, the bishops. It was like that's how I pulled things. It's just I went with what I knew, and to me, writing, it doesn't matter if you're writing fantasy, rom-com, thriller. Whether you add scales or not, it's just interpersonal dynamics. You're just pulling from that. So that's kind of what I did, even down to comic books. King Jarbok, a lot of his motivation is Magneto from X-Men. You may not agree with his methodology, but in the end, he's trying to protect his kin. You just might not like it. Same thing with Jarbok. He's just trying to protect his people.
Yeah, the hero of their own story. Yeah. That's the best way to write any kind of antagonistic character is that like that's they have to be the hero of their story. If they're not, then they're just serving no purpose. that's a perfect way to segue into, my next question is, do you have a nugget of wisdom for any writers out there, anybody that's like trying to become a writer? Like, what's one thing that you wish somebody had told you when you started this?
Don't write by committee. Keep it to yourself.
I like that.
You're not going to please everybody, so don't even try. Just write the story that you wish somebody would publish, because guaranteed if you're looking for it, someone else out there is got the same taste and is looking for it. Just don't write by committee. Don't give it to a lot of people. Don't give it to your friends and family. As much as friends and family want to be supportive, the thing is when you tell somebody, I'm going to be a writer, they're like, there's no money in writing. It's usually the first thing they say.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Just write your story, write your truth, and then go find a good editor and pay the money for the good editor. And understand an editor is only going to catch 80% of the mistakes. So you might have to go get another one and figure out the difference in editing. There's developmental edit, there's copy edit, there's line edit, there's different editors. Spend the money. It will just make you a better writer. So don't write by committee. Keep it to yourself, and then spend the money on the editors. I had a developmental editor first, Cleet Barrett Smith is a god. He's my Yoda. He's the greatest thing ever as far as I'm concerned. I'm like, I love him. I cannot say enough nice things about him. Cleet and I sat down and I gave him the first book, and Locked Out of Heaven was originally the first 3 books. It was one book. And he was the one who was like, look, Danielle, this is amazing. You don't have the audience and the readership first to hold everybody and hold their attention for 500 pages. He's like, this is awesome, but let's just sit and think about this for a second.
Yeah.
And just helped me flush things out and showed me there might be a little plot hole here and there. And then I went to Christina. Christina was, I found her after. She did not do the line editing for Locked Out of Heaven. She did it for Thine Eyes of Mercy. And then from that on, she taught me line editing and copy edit. So learn the tools, research it, and then get it, because it's only going to make you better. The other very important thing I would tell any writer, if you were lucky enough to publish, whether self-publishing, traditional, hybrid, whatever it is, always remember that whatever the first book is, think of it like a yearbook. Think of it as your yearbook photo. That's where you were at that time. Don't keep going back and being like, oh, I could have done this better, I could have done that better, whatever.
I like that.
Think of it as
That's
your yearbook. You can't go back and retake that photo. It doesn't matter. It's done. Close the book and just be like, that's where I was as a writer at that point in time. That was as much knowledge as I had, whatever it is. It was really good for where you were. Be proud of it, own it, and walk away. Don't keep going back, because you're only going to beat yourself up. From the minute you end that book, you are a totally different writer. You're not the same. Don't beat yourself up.
I would agree with that. I like that. So I heard you say something on an interview where, your health was, telling you no, and you shouted back, this is my life. And, you found yourself at a crossroads, and you chose to do things for you. And I think that that's not only brave, but also, almost shaping who you are as a human in a moment.
Yeah, I had, it was funny to get to being a writer. I had my plan first, but writing was not on the horizon. I didn't think one day I'm going to be a writer. My dad will tell you, I said that in like 2nd grade in an essay, but the following week I also wrote that I wanted to be Wonder Woman. So take it with a grain of salt. I was dead set on being a physician assistant, nurse practitioner, something to that extent. I paid a lot of money, for the prereqs. I was going to be a mid-level provider, pump Restylane into people's faces, make money, be a happy little camper. That was my goal. I was working as a nurse. I was finishing everything. As I was going, first I found out I was anaphylactically allergic to the drugs I was actually giving the patients and mixing every day. I went into anaphylactic shock after a needle stick, and I was treated with those drugs. Went into anaphylactic shock, almost died. Still went back to work because I still thought, that's okay, my patients need me, I'll find a way around it. Still wasn't taking the hint that the universe was sending me. I was telling my patient the story at the time, and he was like, you should go write this down. And I was like, nope, not going to do it. and was interviewing, going through the whole CASPA PA process and doing all of that. And then I actually was sitting at my nurse practitioner entrance school interview. And I'm sitting there and it's not going well at all. It's going really bad. And I'm getting a headache of just gigantic proportions. And the doctor is sitting at the end and she's looking at me and my eyes are actually tearing. And she's like, "Are you sure you're okay?" I'm like, "I'm good. I'm good. Just trying to get through this interview and it's downhill. It's going real bad." And I'm like, "No." And she's looking at me and she's like, "You sure?" "Yeah, I'm good." Interview ends and she's the only one who talks to me. And she's like, "Apply to the PA program." She's like, "But get home. You don't look good." I'm like, "Yep, on my way home." I drive home and I can barely drive home. The sun's hurting, everything. I get home. I walk in the door and I'm trying to tell my husband like how it went. And my little Yorkie is barking and just trying to claw at the back of my head. And I pick him up and he starts sniffing and he's clawing at it. And finally, I'm like, I put him down and I'm just like, "Everybody shut up because I can't handle it." And 2 seconds later, I feel something hit me in the back of my head and I drop to my knee. And as I lift my head up, my eye is drooping, my mouth is drooping. And I look at my husband, I say, "I think I'm having a stroke. It's Bell's palsy. It's something." He's like, "Yeah, your face looks like it's melted. Let's go." Got to the hospital. They're like, "Yep, you're having a stroke." I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "This figures." And I'm ready to like go after the university. I'm like, they did this to me. It's too much stress in the,
Yeah.
I have a CAT scan. I come out. I'm being seen by a doctor and a PA, of course. And they're like, "Well, the CAT scan doesn't say strokes. That's good. You're having a complex migraine." I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "Go see a neurologist." And that's all they tell me. And they release me. My boss gets the results and calls me and says, "You need to come up here." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I just got to go to a neurologist. It's fine." She's like, "No, no, no. You need to come up." I get up there and she slides the results and she goes, "Read." And I see dilated infundibulum of the left posterior communicating artery, preaneurysm. And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Honey, you got an aneurysm." I was
Oh, wow.
born with it. You usually the type I have die before you're 6 years old, or it starts changing at a certain time in life. I was directly at that certain time in life. It changed again 6 months later and became a full aneurysm. I am not a candidate for packing, coiling, cauterizing, nothing like that, because where it's located, because I also happen to have basilar fenestration, which is where the basilar artery of the brain bifurcates and one side is patent, meaning it works, and the other side, you don't know what's going on. So they can't measure it because it'll affect directly the aneurysm. So I had just awesome. And so I went and saw the neurologist. I've seen several, and they were the one who I turned out to be my favorite was just like, "You want to go to PA school and put yourself through this stress." And I'm like, and I just looked at him. He was like, "Okay." And I still was like, "I'm going." Got my PA school interview, sat there, and just as that was happening, the book started gaining some traction. And I was going to get an offer from one of the big three, but I couldn't work at the PA school said you can't work at the same time the book is released, or else you are in violation of your contract with the PA school, and that's $30,000 fine, and you are
Ooh.
kicked out. You also, all your loans go into default, and you cannot transfer because it's medical school.
Oh,
So now I get in the
yeah.
program. I've got the aneurysm. Oh, and by the way, you're allergic to the drug, so we got to figure out a way around this. So I call the gentleman who interviewed me, and I'm like, "Okay, here's the deal." I tell him about it, and he looks at me, and we're on the phone, he gets really quiet. He goes, "You were the redhead, right?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "You wore a blue power suit." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." He goes, "Everybody else wore black. You wore shocking blue." I'm like, "I was trying to stand out. He goes, "Read the room next time,
Yeah.
sweetie." I'm like, "Got it. Check. No problem." He goes, "Bet on red. Bet on yourself." And I was like,
I love it.
"Okay." And I just hung up the phone, and I'm like, "I'm not going to go. I'm going to go write a book on fairies." I was like, "I'm going to go write a book on fairies. I'm going to figure out this aneurysm. I'm going to get Botox injections, 50 of them every 3 months in my head to control the migraines, because that's what they were most worried about. And the migraines were coming every day. And I'm going to go write a book about fairies. And then I called my father and I had to tell him, and that was a scary phone call. Because, you're telling your very religious dad, I'm going to go write a book about angels who are fairies, and I'm not going to go to med school, and I paid all this money. And wow, that was probably scarier than anything else I faced.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And I had to leave nursing because of the allergies and everything else like that. I left it all behind, and I threw caution to the wind, and now I dress up like a fairy and I write books about them. I mean,
Yeah.
I put sparkles on my face and I
It
go.
sounds like it sounds like writing actually saved your life, which is an interesting notion in itself. That's awesome.
Yeah.
The reason why you're doing it is not awesome, but I think it's awesome that you were able to do that. We here have adopted the term pivoting, or to pivot, meaning life gave you one thing and you could have been like, and I'm going to sit on this couch and do nothing, and or I can pivot towards what life has kind of given me, and I'm going to take this path because I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to just throw my hands up and be like, woe is me. And I think that's awesome that you
there was a little woe is
ended up,
me. Let me tell you, there was a little woe is me with the initial diagnosis. There was a little woe is me there for a second. There was a little bit of but I couldn't lay there. It was like, get back up. And I kind of think the universe was always pushing me, but I joke, the universe throws a pebble, and then when you don't get it, it's like, here's a bigger one, here's a brick. Finally, they throw a boulder. I got the boulder.
I like that. That's it. I like that analogy. So just real quick, what's next for you? What you got coming?
I actually have signed a partnership deal with a development with Meldiverse, and we are doing a Los AR game. So,
oh wow, that's cool.
You will be able to adopt your own virtual AR dragon in the Meldiverse. So you'll download the Meldiverse app.
That's cool.
And then you will get your own Los the Chameleon Dragon. And you will be able to have your own little Los, because I think everybody should have a Los. And we're hoping June-ish this year will be the beta. And then you'll be able to take Los with you, feed him, do all different things. Eventually, he'll get his own little armor set and do all these little different tricks with him. So we're really excited about that. And then hopefully, eventually, we'd like to build out the Veil and have, an AR game of, with all the characters. But for right now, we're just starting out with Los, which is pretty cool because he is the cutest dragon ever. And, try out and see what it's like to have your own little chameleon dragon. And it's based directly off the character Los. Pandy Van, who's my dragon illustrator, helped. And, you'll see what Los looks like. And he does actually look like my little Yorkie. So it's kind of cool. So Meldiverse we're working with.
That is really cool.
You can follow them on Instagram. And we'll see where that goes. I'm currently working on book 6. Should be out June 16th. About that time.
Okay.
Is that. And then I will be at GalaxyCon Richmond, Virginia with the pop-up bookshop. And I'll be there for, I believe it's March 22nd. I have to get that date checked, but around there, GalaxyCon, and we'll be there. And I'll be there signing books and doing all that cool stuff. And then volume 2 I'm working on right now, which will be what my patient is, his persona. So the one who started this all, he's actually the protagonist of volume 2, Agent Graham.
Oh, cool.
So I'm pretty excited about all of that. Yeah. So Birth of the Fae series is available, everywhere books are sold.
That's cool. Once the adopting a little Los dragon happens and you guys figure out everything to do with that, maybe you'll have to pop back on real quick for us and tell us how that's going and tell us a little bit more about that once you got the ins and outs. That's pretty cool. All right. We like to end with a little this or that. So I'm gonna hit you with some questions. Okay.
Awesome.
Fae or vampires?
Fae.
I like it. A little bit of sparkle or a lot of bit of dark Fae?
Oh, I kind of like a lot of bit of dark Fae.
Yeah, that one was one of the harder ones to come up for you. It's like, I think she could go either way on this one. I like that. The perfect costume or the perfect character creation?
Oh, a costume, 'cause then I can make a character out of that.
I like it. See, and you have such like a backwards engineering to like how you make your characters, and that's so wild to me. Like I know for me, like creating a character is always so like, okay, what does this person look like? How big are they? And then from there, I can block in what they look like, and then
Mm-hmm.
where might they be from? What kind of background did they have? Are they like capable? Are they not? And I have to go through all that where it seems like you could go the exact opposite direction. Like, okay, this person wears this thing, and
Yep, and then I can go from
you can
there.
just. I think that yeah, I think that's amazing because I definitely could be like, okay, dude wears overalls, and I I guess he's 6 feet because most people
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't, my mind wouldn't go there, and I think that's awesome that your mind would. Um, I we like to talk a little bit about support here and support systems. If you wouldn't mind, tell us a little bit about what your support system looks like because you're definitely on the path of like tremendous success and a lot of people that would aspire to do half of what you've done. So what does your support system look like, because that's always an important aspect of creating, being an artist.
My husband is a big supporter, and believe it or not, my patient who started this whole thing, I am still friends with him to this day, and it's been 9 years since I first met him, and
Oh
we
wow.
are still friends. I talk to him every day. He's read all the books, so that's another piece. My pups are constant sources of, they're my muses, so that's
Yeah.
a big thing. And having another author, I think, is helpful.
Hmm.
C.R. Rice has been a huge, person to bounce ideas off of. Like I said, as today, talking
Hmm.
about the other horsemen, we just went, and then it just kept going, and now we're actually discussing even doing a crossover between our two books, and how that could blend.
Oh, that's yeah.
So, I think you need another author, another creative mind to go back.
Yeah.
Uh, and then Pandy Van, who's my dragon illustrator, we met. I think I've known Pandy about 3 years now. So having another creative person who sees it from a different angle, I think, is very important
Hmm.
because her creative engineering is different than mine, but it's been very helpful
Uh-huh.
and she understands my world. So I think those are different support groups and different
Hmm.
plugs
Yeah,
than
absolutely.
mine.
And for creating the world that you're creating, it very much like for me who is writing in an existing world, I could walk downtown in my local city and like pick out inspiration, pick out things, and it's whatever. But for you, creating an entire world, having people to bounce ideas off of that also have done the same thing, that also have different uh, characteristics of what they look for, what they do, how they operate, almost seems like paramount. Like you would have to have somebody that, like you said, you're a dragon illustrator, somebody that their mind works in that kind of a space
Mm-hmm.
to be able to help flush out ideas. And, another author who can relate to what you're creating and maybe give you some advice or some pointers or some like, I guess critiques, not necessarily criticism specifically, but just a little bit of, hey, like this is what I kind of see when I read this or what I, where I go, I don't know if that helps you. And
Yeah,
it seems like it would almost be like required for you to
you need
have
somebody here
that kind of structure.
that's just
Yeah.
like, and I think the cosplay community themselves has been a support group
Hmm.
because from day one, when I entered this space, they were like, hey, one of our own, that's awesome. They were very much
Yeah.
like, go get them. It wasn't like, somebody else trying to jump on the cosplay bandwagon. They knew me. So they were like,
Yeah.
go do this. Cosplay Alliance was really good. The geek group in general, for geeks by geeks, a lot of these guys were just like, cool, go do it, because they knew that I was there. So they were very much like, yeah, go get them. Like, we're right here. We're rooting you on. Go get it. So I think having your tribe,
Hmm.
people that understand you, is a big deal. So all in all, my husband, like, big supporter, and my patient has been right there. And he was just like, he can't wait for volume 2 to come out. He's like, when's my guy
Good.
coming out? He's like, when are we gonna see Agent Graham? He's like, I want Agent Graham to win. So that's all been there.
Yeah.
My publisher's been very good about things. putting me on the cover. That was their idea, was not mine. All those things that are ready to break
Yeah.
barriers. That's all pretty cool. So I'm very happy, and my readers have been wonderful. I can't say anything bad about my readers.
Good.
They've all been awesome. They're all ready for the Fae world. And I think I'm looking to just obviously bring more people into the Veil.
I like it. So if people wanted to find your work, find you, where can they look? What are your handles?
You can always find me on Instagram at Birth of the Fae, FAE_novel. I had to take the underscore because somebody took Birth of the Fae before I got there, and they won't give it up, and I don't know who they are. So it's Instagram is Birth of the Fae _novel, and then you can find me at my website birthofthefae.com or at 4 Horsemen Publications.com, and you can look me up under their authors there as well. And then the books are on Amazon, Target.com, BarnesandNobles.com, Bookshop.org, and then if you just type in, Locked Out of Heaven, Thine Eyes of Mercy, From the Ashes, any of those, I'll pop up. I'm actually just under Bruno Mars's Locked Out of Heaven. We're getting there. We're going to take over Bruno Mars one of these days, or he's going to come to me and say,
"We're coming for you, Bruno. We're coming for you."
Him and I are going to do something one of these days. He's going to redo Locked Out of Heaven just for me, for my anime. We're working on it. We're working on it.
There you go. Well, that's awesome. And we'll link all that in the show notes so that people can find you. I can't thank you enough for jumping on here and being dressed up as a character. If you don't mind, I don't know if this is the crown that you were talking about was made, but potentially you had one that was made in Topeka, and I'm from Lawrence, which is like half hour away. So shout out whoever made that for me real quick.
This is Enchanting Earth. They're actually in Topeka. This is they're in Topeka. They have actually a storefront. Jamie from Enchanting Earth. She has a crystal shop right in Topeka, Kansas. And this is the actual crown. She has the Aurora crown in stock in her store. She gets me all my crystals. All the crystals that are in the book are from, she sent me, samples of them, and we go back and forth. But yep, this crown has the Angelite disc from the book. It's all quartz, but she did all of it, and she sells it right there on her website, on Instagram, and in her store.
All right. So that's one of those things. Like I said, I'm from Lawrence. So that's like I said, half-hour drive from me.
Jamie will hook you up.
And I definitely want to give them a shout out when we can. And, we'll post specifically that clip just for them and that shout out because it's a local thing.
You got it.
I'm rocking a Kansas City weirdo shirt. So,
perfect.
Jamie will love it. Thanks for coming on here again. I can't tell you how, awesome it is to have somebody with so much energy and so much passion about their writing talk about it. I know that for me, success is being involved in an atmosphere where people want to hear about my writing or people want to ask me about my writing. To me, that's success. Everything else is just extra. The true success is people caring about my work enough to want to talk to me about it. So I care about what you're doing. I think that the worlds that you're creating and the characters that you're creating and how it all came about is truly amazing. Keep it up. Can't wait to see where you go. We're looking for those Los Dragons coming up soon. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.